Why, after deciding to put tariffs in place on Chinese EVs, is the EU now agreeing to hold talks with China?
Yeah, the EU really approached this differently, at least, in their view, and I think in reality, than, say, Washington did, or even we've seen other countries, including Turkey or Brazil, put in place higher tariff rates on electric vehicles, really out of concern of the amount of volume coming out of China and flowing into these other markets. And I think there's a real effort, and has been, really since these were implemented, to sort of, differentiate and to lay out the case for, hey, we went out at this with a months-long investigation to get to the bottom of just how much, subsidization has been applied to this industry, and really came up with, you sort of did the math essentially, and are showing our work in terms of, just how much of a tariff needs to be put in place company by company based on how much support they've had over the years.
So that will be part of the message that EU officials will bring to their Chinese counterparts. What else are they going to be using in terms of this discussion, this debate, this negotiation, to try and put pressure on China, to try and push through some accessions at least?
I think, I would assume that there is going to be, some sharing of some of the particulars around this investigation to kind of, lay out the case for why these tariffs have been put into place. There's also, I think, going to be a desire on the part of folks on the Brussels side to really try and limit the extent of sort of return fire, if you will. So there's already been, threats made of putting tariffs on imported vehicles with large engines. That's a big concern for the Germans in particular. Volkswagen and Mercedes and BMW are very worried about that. But also beyond the auto industry, I mean, the threats being put on, everything from dairy to wine to French brandy. So this has the potential to, become something much more than just a trade fight over cars. There is, a concern that this boils over into something much more, and that there's more of a sort of back and forth tit for tat here, along the lines of what we saw, during the Trump administration between Washington and Beijing.
Well, Craig, what is your assessment of the propensity of Chinese officials to go full force on this then, in terms of the reality, in terms of actually putting in place restrictions to try and essentially punish the EU over this? What have we been hearing from Beijing in terms of their potential response?
Yeah, I think our executive editor, John Liu, spoke to this earlier this morning, Europe time, about this idea that, in China, there's going to be a desire to really sort of, get some concessions here, show that they've been tough on Brussels and extracted something for their companies. I think, I do think there's also some consistency in terms of, one of the things that does align Washington and Brussels is this concern about overcapacity. And so while China will sort of message, to this idea of, big companies like BYD and CATL are setting up shop in Europe and hiring workers in Europe to make electric vehicles and batteries. One of the big concerns that you hear from Brussels and Washington is about the extent of overcapacity in China. So even if there is some on the margin, investment outside of China, what is going to be done about the fact that there are so many car companies and battery companies producing so many vehicles and batteries? And to what extent can the rest of the world even, possibly compete when, they're working with workforces that are paid more and sort of undercut by the fact that China just has so much capacity and such an advantage in terms of price?